Over-ordering materials can result in what? Danger, lower costs, waste, accident.
Which of the following is the safest method of accessing a mobile access tower? Climbing a ladder inside the tower. Climbing up the outside of the tower. Climbing a ladder outside of the tower. Climbing a rope on the outside of the tower.
Who should you speak to if the work of another contractor is affecting your safety? The contractor, the contractor's supervisor, your supervisor, your workmates.
What does a hot work permit allow you to do? Carry out work that needs warm protective clothing. Work in warm weather. Carry out work that could start a fire. Work below ground in a confined space.
Which of these is the most accurate way to confirm the exact location of buried services? Architect drawings, survey drawings, trial holes, cable plans.
When is the best time to conduct face-fit testing for respiratory protective equipment, RPE? As part of the initial selection of RPE. After the RPE has been worn and used. In the morning before workers become sweaty. At the beginning of each new year. What is an advantage of adopting safe manual handling methods? You can leave work earlier that day. You can increase your strength and lift heavier loads. You can lift heavier and awkward loads more often. You can protect your back, reducing the risk of injury.
What should you do if you are required to use access equipment that you have not been trained to use? Do the job if it won't take long. Ask someone else to do it. Stop work and speak to your supervisor. Get a ladder instead. When must an accident be recorded? Only when a person breaks a major bone or is concussed. Only when a person is injured and will be off work for 3 days or more. Only when an accident causes damage to plant or equipment. Only when an accident causes injury to a worker as a result of working activities.
If the toilets on your site are dirty or do not flush, what should you do? Tell the person in charge of the site about the problem. Try to fix the faulty toilet yourself. See if you can use public toilets nearby. Try not to use the toilets while you are at work.
In addition to putting controls in place when workers are working with hazardous substances, what else must employers do? Monitor the controls. Change the controls weekly. Keep the controls secret. Change the controls every month.
When is the only time that you do not need to wear head protection on site? If you are working alone. If you are self-employed. If you are working in hot weather. if you are in a safe area, like the site office.
Before you enter a construction site, what actions must be in place? The Health and Safety Officer must have given you permission. You must be authorised and given a site induction. Your site supervisor must have given you permission. You must have a trade skill to be allowed to enter. Which of the following statements about gas leaking from a liquefied petroleum gas, LPG cylinder, is true? It's not a problem if a risk assessment has been carried out beforehand. Any leak will always cause a fire and evacuation should be immediate. It can catch fire at some distance from the original leak and flash back to the source. It is only dangerous if there is a heat source very close to the cylinder.
When should you apply barrier cream to your skin? As part of first aid treatment, when you can't find your gloves, before you start work, when you finish work. In order to reduce the risk of accidents, which one of the following should be avoided when driving vehicles on site? Implement a one-way system around the site. Reverse without the use of a vehicle marshaller. Use designated turning areas. Drive through loading and unloading areas. If you suspect someone at work has been drinking alcohol, what should you do? Report the situation to your supervisor, as they may be unsafe to work. Get them to drink plenty of strong coffee before they go back to work. Get them to eat and drink something, wait 30 minutes and then go back to work. Ask them to stay away for an hour and then go back to work. Which one of the following statements is true? People experiencing mental health problems tend to be violent or dangerous. Mental health problems are rare among construction workers. Mental health problems are common and can happen to anyone. Learning difficulties and mental health problems are the same. A construction worker has been exposed to concrete dust for a long period of time. What are they most likely to suffer from? Headache or migraine, shortness of breath, blurred vision, hearing problems.
Which part of the body is most likely to be injured when lifting heavy loads?
Which of the following two statements about moving mobile access towers are correct? The tower can be moved short distances while tools and equipment are on it. The tower should only be moved over soft or uneven ground. The tower should only be moved outside of working hours. The tower must not be moved while people are on it. The tower must not be moved while tools and equipment are on it.
What is the best way to minimize dust on site? Using powered tools only, covering the whole site, dampening using fine water sprays, reducing use of the wheel wash, when drilling, cutting, sanding or grinding, what is the best way to protect your long-term health from harmful dust? Use dust extraction or wet cut and wear a dust mask. Use dust extraction or wet cut and wear FFP3 rated respiratory protective equipment, RPE. Wear any disposable respiratory protective equipment, RPE. Wear FFP3 rated respiratory protective equipment, RPE. You witness a serious accident on site. What immediate action should you take? Give 2 answers. Record the date and time in the incident book. Check if it is safe to approach the injured person. Sit the injured person up and give them food and water. Lift the injured person and take them to the site office. Call out to other workers so they can call for help.
To reduce the risk of overturning and accidents when not in use, how should earth-moving vehicles be parked? With their buckets and blades facing the same way. With the buckets and blades facing opposite directions. With their buckets and blades raised in the air. With their buckets and blades lowered to the ground. Which one of the following statements is true, with reference to asbestos-containing materials, ACMs? They can be difficult to identify. They are usually found in new buildings. They have an identifiable smell. They are quite simple to identify.
What are 3 early signs of hand-arm vibration syndrome, HAVS? Rash on the fingers. Temporary loss of feeling in the fingers. Fingertips turn white. Blisters on the fingers. Tingling or a pins and needles sensation in the fingers. Select the 2 images in which the worker is correctly protecting themselves from possible cuts or abrasions. Washing no gloves. Painting with gloves. Carrying with no gloves. Scraping with gloves. Scrubbing no gloves.
Why should you not walk behind a lorry when it is reversing? The driver is unlikely to know you are there. You will need to run, not walk, to get past it in time. Most lorries are not fitted with mirrors. Most lorry drivers aren't very good at reversing. Your supervisor asks you to drive a dumper truck, but you have not driven one before. What should you do? Watch other dumpers to see how they are operated. Tell your supervisor that you are not trained and so cannot operate it. Operate the dumper in an open area in case you make a mistake. Ask a trained driver how to operate it safely. Identify one of the most common types of accident. involving site dumpers. Vehicles overturning. Drivers not concentrating. Issues with engines. Inexperienced drivers.
If you think you have found some asbestos, what is the first thing you should do? Find the first aider. Stop work and warn others. Take a sample to your supervisor. Put it in a bin and carry on with your work.
Who is responsible for managing health and safety on site? Building Inspector. Site Manager. Health and Safety Executive, HSE. Contracts Manager.
When working at height in a mobile elevating work platform, MEWP, over or near to deep water, which item of personal protective equipment, PPE, should be worn? Life jacket. Full body harness. Full face respirator. Wellington boots.
What should you do if your disposable foam earplugs keep falling out? Throw them away and work without them. Put rolled up tissue paper in each ear instead. Stop work until you are shown how to fit them properly. Put 2 earplugs in each ear so that they stay in place.
What should be done before adjusting an electric hand tool? You should never adjust an electric hand tool yourself. Switch it off and remove the plug from the socket. Put tape over the power switch before adjusting. Switch it off, but leave the plug in the socket. What does this sign mean? No safety helmets in this area. Dispose of damaged safety helmets here. Safety helmets must be worn. Only white safety helmets allowed in this area.
If the first aid kit on site is empty, what should you do? Bring your own first aid supplies into work. Inform the person who looks after the first aid kit. Ignore the problem as it is always the same. Find out who is taking all the first aid supplies.
You need to use an air-powered tool. What 3 hazards are likely to affect you? Airborne dust and flying fragments. An electric shock. Being struck by a poorly secured hose. Hand-arm vibration. Radiation. At what intervals should fall arrest equipment be inspected? Monthly, every time before use. Annually, every time after use.
Hydrogen sulfide is a gas given off by rotting organic substances. Which 2 statements are true about hydrogen sulfide? It is dark brown at room temperature. It can cause unconsciousness in a few breaths. It is a harmless natural gas. It is dangerous because it can disable the sense of smell. It can safely be detected by using a naked flame.
Mobile access towers should be erected, altered or dismantled by whom? Anyone who thinks they can do it. Anyone who has excess time in their day. Anyone who has worked for the company longer than 2 years. Anyone who is trained, competent and authorised.
Which of the following is bad practice? Storing materials safely. Mixing all waste in one skip. Refueling carefully to avoid spills. Switching off plant and equipment when it is not in use. What is hand-arm vibration syndrome? HAVS. A mild skin rash that will go away eventually. A serious skin condition affecting the arms that will not clear up. A range of conditions that can lead to permanent damage. An injury caused by severe frostbite to the hands.
After asbestos, which of the following causes the most ill health to construction workers? Resin, solvent and paint vapours. Silica dust. Wood and MDF dust. Diesel fumes.
Who should drive company vehicles? Any construction site manager or supervisor. Anyone with a learner driver permit. Any employee who is competent and authorised. Any junior apprentice workers. What action should be taken if you notice a cylinder of liquid petroleum gas, LPG, is leaking? Deliberately drain the cylinder. Turn the supply off immediately, if it is safe to do so. Pour water on the cylinder to keep it cool. Don't report it to anyone except the site manager.
When should an oil spill be cleaned up? Immediately. It could cause someone to slip. When it has dried. Never. It will be absorbed into the ground. At the end of the shift.
When do you need to check tools and equipment for damage? Once a week. Each time before use. At least once a year. Every day.
When working in a confined space, what is it a sign of if there is a smell of rotten eggs? Oxygen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, methane.